She handed him an invitation to her birthday party. Not because she wanted him there, but because she wanted to watch him suffer. To see him stand awkward and out of place among people who would never accept him. To remind him, in front of everyone, exactly where he belonged. But when he walked through those doors that night, every single person in that room turned to look. And the woman who had spent years tearing him down felt something she had never felt before. Fear. This is a true story about a man named Marcus Reed, a 38-year-old driver living in Atlanta, Georgia. He worked for a woman named Victoria Langston, the owner of an upscale interior design firm that catered to the wealthiest families in the city. Victoria was the kind of woman who measured people by their bank accounts, their job titles, and the brands they wore. And in her world, Marcus was invisible. To her, he was not a person with dreams, a past, or dignity. He was just the man who drove her car. Every morning, Marcus arrived at Victoria's sprawling home in Buckhead before 7. The gate was tall and electric. The driveway was lined with imported stone. The lawn looked like it belonged in a magazine. Marcus would park the black Mercedes SUV near the side entrance, check the mirrors, wipe down the dashboard, and wait. Victoria never said good morning. She would come out already on her phone, sunglasses on even when the sun had barely risen, heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown. She would slide into the back seat without looking at him, and Marcus would drive. One Tuesday morning, as Marcus held the door open for her, Victoria paused and looked him up and down. She wrinkled her nose slightly, as if she had smelled something unpleasant. "Marcus," she said, her tone sharp and cold, "is that the same shirt you wore yesterday?" Marcus glanced down at his plain blue button-down. It was clean, ironed. He had 3 just like it. "No, ma'am," he replied quietly. "It's a different one." Victoria laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "They all look the same. You know that, right? You look the same every day, like you've given up." Marcus said nothing. He simply closed the door and walked around to the driver's seat. His hands gripped the steering wheel a little tighter than usual, but his face remained calm. Victoria spent most of the drive on the phone, her voice loud and animated. She was talking to someone named Brianna, one of her closest friends. "Girl, I'm telling you," Victoria said, laughing into the phone. "I don't know why I keep him. He's so quiet, so boring. It's like driving around with a ghost." She paused, then continued. "But you know how hard it is to find someone reliable these days. So I just deal with it. He knows his place." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. His jaw tightened for a second, then relaxed. He had learned long ago not to react, not to defend himself, not to show that her words landed, because they always did. Victoria's company, Langston Interiors, was thriving. She had recently landed a contract to redesign a luxury hotel downtown, and the project had made her even more insufferable. She spoke to Marcus the way someone might speak to a piece of furniture, with indifference, with contempt. One afternoon, after a client meeting, Victoria and 2 of her friends, Brianna and Ashley, decided to go shopping. Marcus followed behind them through the upscale boutiques of Lenox Square, carrying bags that grew heavier with each store. The women laughed loudly, tried on expensive clothes, and talked about an upcoming party, Victoria's birthday party. "I want this year to be big," Victoria announced as she examined a pair of designer heels. "Bigger than last year. I'm talking about a guest list that will make people jealous." Brianna grinned. "You always go big." "But what's the theme this time?" Victoria smiled, a sly look crossing her face. "Elegance and exclusivity. Only the best people. No boring, no cheap, no nobodies." Ashley laughed. "So basically your usual crowd." Victoria nodded. Then her eyes drifted toward Marcus, who stood a few feet away holding shopping bags. She stared at him for a moment, and her smile grew wider. "Actually," she said slowly, loud enough for Marcus to hear, "I just had the funniest idea." Brianna leaned in. "What?" Victoria gestured toward Marcus with her chin. What if I invited him? Brianna's eyes widened. Your driver? Yes, Victoria said, her voice bubbling with amusement. Can you imagine? Marcus in a room full of executives, investors, and socialites, standing there with a plastic cup, trying to figure out which fork to use. It would be hilarious. Ashley covered her mouth, laughing. Victoria, that's cruel. It's funny, Victoria corrected. And honestly, it might teach him something. Show him what real success looks like. Maybe he'll finally understand his place in the world. Brianna shook her head, still smiling. You're terrible, but I kind of want to see it. Victoria turned toward Marcus. Marcus, she called out. He looked up. Yes, ma'am. My birthday party is next Saturday, she said, her tone dripping with false sweetness. You're invited. Marcus blinked. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded. Thank you, ma'am. Victoria tilted her head, studying him. You'll come, right? Yes, ma'am, Marcus replied. His voice was steady, calm. Victoria frowned slightly. She had expected hesitation, maybe embarrassment. But Marcus just stood there, composed, holding her shopping bags like nothing had happened. Good, she said, turning back to her friends. This is going to be fun. That night, Marcus returned to his small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood on the west side of Atlanta. The building was old but well-maintained. His apartment was simple: a bed, a small table, a single chair by the window. Everything was clean and organized. Marcus dropped his keys on the table and sat on the edge of the bed. He stared at the floor for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. She invited me to embarrass me, he said quietly to himself. He stood up and walked to the closet. In the back, behind his everyday clothes, was a garment bag. Marcus hesitated, then pulled it out. He unzipped it slowly. Inside was a tailored charcoal suit, perfectly pressed, expensive fabric, the kind of suit that didn't come from a department store. Marcus ran his fingers along the sleeve, and for a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes. A memory, a different life. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Marcus had not always been a driver. 10 years ago, he had been someone else entirely, someone with a different name in a different world. Marcus Reed had once been a runway model. Not famous, but successful. He had walked for mid-tier designers, appeared in regional campaigns, and made enough money to live comfortably. He had been confident, stylish, and surrounded by people who treated him like he mattered. But life has a way of changing course when you least expect it. His mother fell ill. Cancer. Stage 4. Marcus left the modeling world to take care of her. He moved back to Atlanta, worked odd jobs to pay for her treatment, and stayed by her side until the very end. When she passed, Marcus was 32 years old, broke and completely burnt out. The modeling agencies had moved on. The contacts had gone cold. The life he once had was gone. So he became a driver. It was steady work, quiet work, and for a while, that was enough. But holding that suit again, feeling the weight of it in his hands, something inside Marcus shifted. He walked over to the mirror and held the suit up against his body. He looked at his reflection. Really looked. His posture was still there. His presence. The way he carried himself. It had never left. She wants to humiliate me, Marcus said softly to the mirror. But she doesn't know who I used to be. He hung the suit back up carefully, zipped the garment bag, and returned it to the closet. Then he sat down and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through old contacts, names he hadn't spoken to in years. He stopped on one. Damon Clark, a photographer he used to work with. Marcus stared at the name for a long time. Then he typed a message. Hey Damon, it's Marcus. Been a while, I need a favor. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Victoria's house at the usual time. She came out wearing a cream-colored blazer and oversized sunglasses, talking on the phone as always. She slid into the back seat without acknowledgement. As Marcus drove, Victoria continued her conversation. "Yes, the venue is confirmed. The caterer is locked in. I even hired a live band. This party is going to be perfect." She paused, listening. Then she laughed. "Oh, and I invited my driver. I know. It's going to be comedy gold." Marcus said nothing. His hand stayed steady on the wheel. His face remained neutral. But inside, something had already started to shift. Saturday arrived, the day of Victoria's birthday party. The event was being held at a luxury venue in Midtown, a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows, crystal chandeliers, and a guest list that read like a who's who of Atlanta's elite. Victoria spent the entire day getting ready. Hair, makeup, nails, a custom dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled. Tonight was going to be perfect. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus stood in his small apartment, buttoning up his charcoal suit. The fabric felt familiar against his skin, like putting on armor. He adjusted his tie, checked his reflection one last time, and grabbed his keys. As he walked out the door, his phone buzzed. A text from Damon. "Good luck tonight. Show them who you are." Marcus smiled slightly. Then he got into his car and drove toward Midtown. The party was already in full swing when Marcus arrived. Luxury cars lined the street. A red carpet led to the entrance. A photographer stood near the door, snapping pictures of guests as they walked in. Marcus parked a block away and walked up slowly. He wasn't rushing, wasn't nervous. He was calm, focused. As he approached the entrance, the photographer glanced up and paused. He lowered his camera slightly, studying Marcus. Then he raised it again and took a photo. Marcus didn't stop. He walked through the door. Inside, the venue was breathtaking. Soft lighting, live music. Waiters moving through the crowd with trays of champagne. Women in designer dresses, men in expensive suits. Everyone looked polished, powerful, untouchable. And then there was Marcus. He stepped into the room, and for a moment, everything seemed to slow. Heads turned, conversations paused, people looked. Really looked. Because Marcus didn't look like a driver. He looked like someone who belonged. Victoria was standing near the center of the room, surrounded by her friends. She was mid-laugh when someone tapped her shoulder. "Victoria," Brianna said, her voice low. "Is that Marcus?" Victoria turned, her smile still on her face. But when she saw him, the smile faltered. Marcus stood near the entrance, hands at his pockets, calm and composed. The suit fit him perfectly. His posture was straight. His presence was undeniable. "Oh my God," Ashley whispered. "He looks good." Victoria's chest tightened. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Marcus was supposed to look out of place, uncomfortable, like he didn't belong. But instead, people were staring at him like he was someone important. A woman approached Marcus, smiling. "Hi," she said. "I don't think we've met. I'm Lauren." Marcus extended his hand. "Marcus, nice to meet you. Are you in business?" she asked. "Not exactly," Marcus replied. "I work in transportation." Lauren laughed lightly. "Oh, like logistics? That's fascinating." Before Marcus could respond, another woman joined them. Then a man in a tailored suit. Within minutes, a small crowd had formed around him. Victoria watched from across the room, her hands clenched into fists. Brianna leaned close. "This isn't what you planned, is it?" Victoria didn't answer. She just stared. Then someone walked up to Marcus with a phone. "Excuse me," the man said. "I'm a talent scout. I work with a modeling agency here in Atlanta. Have you ever modeled before?" Marcus paused. Then he nodded. "A long time ago." The man's eyes lit up. "I thought so. You have the look. Here's my card. We should talk." Victoria's stomach dropped. This couldn't be happening. She had invited Marcus to humiliate him, to remind him of his place, but instead, he was being treated like a guest of honor. She marched over, forcing a smile. "Marcus," she said loudly. "There you are. I was wondering when you'd show up." Marcus turned to her. "Good evening, Victoria. Happy birthday." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "You clean up well. I almost didn't recognize you." "Thank you," Marcus said calmly. Victoria leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Don't get too comfortable. You're still just here as a guest. Don't embarrass me." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled slightly. "I won't," he said, and he walked away. Now, if you're still watching this story, type "I'm still here" in the comments right now. Let's see how many of you have stayed with Marcus on this journey. We want to know you're with us. The rest of the night unfolded like a slow unraveling for Victoria. Marcus didn't fade into the background the way she had hoped. He didn't stand awkwardly in a corner holding a drink. Instead, he moved through the room with ease. He made conversation. He laughed. He carried himself with quiet confidence. People were drawn to him, and Victoria hated it. At one point, she overheard two women talking near the bar. "Who is that guy in the charcoal suit?" one asked. "I don't know," the other replied. "But he's gorgeous, and he's so calm, like he doesn't need to try." Victoria's hands shook as she gripped her champagne glass. This was supposed to be her night, her moment, but all anyone wanted to talk about was Marcus. Later in the evening, the talent scout approached Marcus again, this time with a contract in hand. "I'm serious," the man said. "We'd love to work with you. You've got something, a presence. We can start with some test shoots, see where it goes." Marcus looked at the contract, then at the man. "I appreciate it," he said, "but I'll need some time to think." The man nodded. "Of course. Take all the time you need, but don't wait too long. Opportunities like this don't come around often." As the man walked away, Marcus stood there staring at the card in his hand. His phone buzzed. Another text from Damon. "Told you, you've still got it." Marcus smiled to himself. Maybe he did. By the end of the night, Victoria was exhausted. Not from the party, but from watching Marcus shine in a way she never thought possible. As guests began to leave, Marcus approached her one last time. "Thank you for inviting me," he said. Victoria forced a smile. "Of course. I hope you had fun." Marcus nodded. "I did. It reminded me of something important." "What's that?" Victoria asked, her voice tight. Marcus looked at her, his expression calm but firm. "That I'm more than what people see, and I always have been." Victoria said nothing. Marcus turned and walked toward the exit. As he left, several people called out to him, waving goodbye, asking for his contact information. Victoria stood in the middle of her own party, surrounded by decorations and empty champagne glasses, feeling smaller than she ever had before. 2 weeks later, Marcus quit. He didn't give a long explanation. He simply handed Victoria an envelope with his 2-week notice and said, "I've accepted another opportunity. Thank you for the work." Victoria stared at the letter, her face pale. "What opportunity?" she asked. "Modeling," Marcus replied. "Turns out, people still remember me, and I'm ready to step back into that world." Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came out. Marcus smiled, tipped his head slightly, and walked out of her house for the last time. Within a month, Marcus's face was on a billboard downtown. Within 3 months, he had signed with one of the top agencies in the Southeast. Within 6 months, he was walking runways again, appearing in campaigns, and living the life he once thought was gone forever. And Victoria? Her business didn't fail, but her reputation took a hit. Word spread about how she had treated Marcus, how she had invited him to her party as a joke, how she had looked down on him for years. Clients began to distance themselves. Friends stopped calling as often. She learned the hard way that cruelty has consequences. One evening, Victoria saw Marcus's face on a magazine cover at a grocery store checkout line. She stared at it for a long time, her chest tight, her hands trembling. The man she had dismissed as nothing had become everything, and she had no one to blame but herself. So here's the question. How many people in your life have you underestimated? How many times have you judged someone by their job, their clothes, or the car they drive? And what if, like Victoria, you're wrong? What if the person you're looking down on is someone with a story, a past, and a future far bigger than you could ever imagine? Marcus didn't need revenge. He didn't need to prove anything to Victoria. He just needed to remember who he was. And sometimes, that's the most powerful thing you can do. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever been treated the way Marcus was? Have you ever been made to feel small by someone who thought they were better than you? And if you have, what did you do? Did you stay quiet or did you rise? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.